Hello everybody, welcome back. It's me, Albatross, and I hope you all enjoyed the Easter special last time. Now we will be getting back on course in order that we were. We had left off from the book of Ruth. We had finished the book of Ruth. We're going to be beginning the book of Samuel. And this will mark the transition between the times of what they call like the times of the judges, where the Israelites were being led by judges among intermittent periods of slavery and chaos. They were ruled by judges. This kind of is the transition between that into where it becomes kind of like a united kingdom and whatnot. And I just want to give a disclaimer that this may offend people. This isn't your typical, we're not pro-organized religion on this channel. We're very pro-spirituality, yes, but we're not pro-religion. So I just wanted to give that little disclaimer so no one's confused about, what this is going to be about. But anyways, with all that being said, let's get back into Samuel. Now we start off in Samuel's story where we're in Ephraim still. A lot of these, Old Testament stories are in Ephraim. And Samuel is, I'm getting ahead of myself. There is a man named Elkanah, and he has two wives. In Shiloh. No, I'm sorry, not in Shiloh. In Ephraim, like I said. Shiloh was in Ephraim, and Shiloh is where the Ark of the Covenant was at that time, which is important. And so Elkanah would go to Shiloh once a year, I think during Passover, if I'm not mistaken, where, he would bring his offerings and whatnot to Yahweh, him and his family, him and his two wives. His two wives were Hannah, the famous Hannah, and Peninnah. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Peninnah. Now, it's very interesting because this story is a bit reminiscent of some older stories in the Old Testament, where there's two wives. One of them's the favorite and the other one's not. And the one who's not a favorite has, more children. And the favorite is barren. And, it's a very similar pattern we see in these stories. But here, let me get to... We'll begin with verse 4. 1 Samuel 1, verse 4. Okay. Now, whenever the day came for Elkanah, the husband, to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. And I guess their sons and daughters. But to Hannah, he gave a double portion because he loved her. And the Lord had closed her womb. Now, first of all, I'd like to say I take issue with that right off the gate because I'm not really sure how that's supposed to be fair. Peninnah has all these mouths to feed, but Hannah only has herself, but yet Hannah still gets double portions of food and whatnot. So that's obviously going to sow a little bit of resentment between the two women. It's another familiar pattern because it's basically the same thing that happened with Jacob, Rebecca, and Jacob, Rachel, and Leah. When Rachel was his favorite, and Rachel also happened to be barren, but she was still his favorite. Leah had all these children, and then they would start to feud with each other because of each one would be jealous of the other, and each one would have good reason to be jealous of the other. So, it just seems like a perfect recipe for tension. And it was very contentious. Let me keep reading. Because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. Pause. I'd also like to say this could be a little misleading to whoever wrote this, because maybe Peninnah was a little bit, I'm not trying to defend her behavior, but maybe Peninnah was a little bit upset that maybe she didn't have enough food to feed her kids because it was all going to Hannah. I mean, that could be cause for a little resentment. I don't know. Who am I? I wasn't there. I just wanted to add that because, I would be a little resentful of that. I would. Okay. This went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and wouldn't eat. So not only was she getting double portions of food, whenever Peninnah would get upset about it and provoke Hannah and make fun of Hannah, Hannah just would, out of spite, would just I'm not going to eat anything. I'm not hungry. And honestly, maybe Hannah could have solved some of these issues by, instead of like feeling sorry for herself and wallowing in self-pity, maybe she could have given the food that she refused to eat to Peninnah's children. I don't know. But anyways, I'm sure that wasn't an option. Just a thought. Now, Elkanah saw that Hannah was distressed, and just typical men, right? He was just like, don't I make you happy? Who needs kids when you've got me, honey? Sweet. It was sweet. I guess he tried. He literally says, why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? Poor Hannah. Okay. Anyways. So then Hannah was very upset, obviously, and this happens to be during one of their pilgrimages in Shiloh. So she goes off to pray to herself in front of the tent tabernacle. So she's like on her knees and praying and stuff. And Eli, who happens to be the priest at this time at the temple in Shiloh, Eli sees her, and at first he thinks she's just a crazy drunk sitting there talking to herself. He doesn't realize that she's on her knees praying. And he literally tells her here, 1 Samuel 1, verse 12. Here, I'll just read it to you. As she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk, and said to her, how long are you going to stay drunk? Put away your wine. Not so, my lord, Hannah replied. I am a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring my soul to the Lord. More like wallowing in self-pity. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I have been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. And then Eli answered her, go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked for. And then she said, may your servant find favor in your eyes. And then this whole little exchange made her feel better. And then she went home and then she ate something. Now we get to the point where, okay, where are we at? Early the next morning, they arose and worshiped the Lord, and then they went back home to their home in Ramah. And then it says, I'm in verse 19 here, Elkanah made love to his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant. So it's not really clear if she got pregnant in this encounter or if she got pregnant later. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. I just thought it was a weird way to word it. I'll have to look at some of the other translated versions of this verse and see, because I don't know. It just seems little out of context. First it says that he slept with her, and then it said in the course of time she became pregnant, as if she didn't get pregnant right then and there. As if, I don't know. Maybe I'm just reaching here. I'll continue. But she does give birth to a son, and she names him Samuel. And the reason for this is, she says, it's because I asked the Lord for him. And there's a subnote here where it says Samuel sounds like the Hebrew for heard by God. Because, El is like, their God. Like, there's no, question about that. The word El did mean God to them. But anyways, I just want to get that out of the way. Because I know a lot of people like to argue about that. But, like, yeah. Maybe I better explain where the confusion comes from. You see, like, originally, El was the name of their god. You know what I mean? In the Sumerian text, he was called Elil. The Canaanite pantheon, he was named El. And when the Israelites and the Canaanites, kind of meshed their cultures together a little bit, then they all started calling him Yahweh and then stopped calling him El. But El is the same one as Yahweh. Okay? Just two different names for the same entity. Okay. Anywho, let's get back to it. So then, yeah, basically, another little note here. It says when Samuel turns 3, she gives him to Eli, the priest, because she promised Yahweh that she would, if she was able to give birth, that she would give her son to Yahweh. And it's a little bit unclear if like, she's doing this willingly or if she was asked to do this. And I'll tell you why I say that. Right here in verse Like if I just jump ahead just a little bit here for a moment, 1 Samuel 2, verse 20, Eli would bless Elkanah and Hannah, saying, "May the Lord give you children by this woman, to take the place of the one she prayed for and gave to the Lord." Well, there's a subnote here where it says, instead of gave to, the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Masoretic text actually says, and asked from the Lord. So I'm not really sure if this was like really like she was just gonna keep her word and do this willingly, or if Yahweh specifically asked her for Samuel. So I just wanted to, make that note. But either way, it doesn't really matter, because she does give Samuel to Eli to the temple of the Lord in Shiloh. And she does have more children after that. But, she still maintained a relationship with Samuel, because they would still go there once a year. And, she would, bring him, clothes and things like that. So, she still kept a relationship with him. But he was more or less raised by Eli. And we're about to get into Eli here and his sons. Because, Yahweh doesn't like Eli's sons. At all. At all. And there's a couple reasons for that. The two main reasons that I found is that, basically they were taking, they weren't going according to the protocol. You see, the protocol, when people would come and, bring their sacrifice or whatnot, they would come and they would, start to boil the meat. And while they were boiling the meat, the priests, which were Eli's sons, would come out with the 3-pronged fork and, stick it to whatever they were cooking in, and pull out a hunk of meat, and that would be their portion of meat. But they would have to wait for the fat to be burned. It's a whole thing. We went over this in Deuteronomy and whatnot. It's a whole thing. It's a very specific process, step-by-step process that they go through for these rituals. And Eli's sons were kind of more or less teetering from that, and they weren't waiting. They wanted their meat raw. They weren't waiting for the fat to be burned or anything like that. They just wanted their portion right then, and they would take it by force from some people. They were just really feeling themselves, you know what I mean? They were just taking what they wanted. And not only that, they started sleeping with the women who were serving outside the temple. They were just doing those kinds of things. I mean, I don't know. Does it matter? Apparently it does to Yahweh. It matters for them to follow things step by step, as we read before back in the desert, when he pretty much struck Aaron's sons dead for burning the wrong incense. So, he's very particular about these rules. And so, anywho. Now, but anyways, at some point, someone comes and prophesies to Eli. It's not Samuel yet, even though Samuel does also have a prophecy for Eli and his sons. It looks like someone else also had a prophecy for him, because it says in 2 Samuel 2, verse 27, "Now a man of God came to Eli and said to him, this is what the Lord says, did I not clearly reveal myself to your ancestors' family when they were in Egypt under Pharaoh? I chose your ancestor out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to go up to my altar, to burn incense, and to wear an ephod in my presence. I also gave your family all the food offerings presented by the Israelites." This would be Aaron's lineage. "Why do you scorn my sacrifice and offering that I prescribed for my dwelling? Why do you honor your sons more than me by fattening yourselves on the choice parts of every offering made by my people Israel?" So we see what the problem is. That Eli's sons, God forbid, they take some of the better portions of the meat for themselves and not feed it to this oaf. But anyway, we continue. "Therefore, the Lord, the God of Israel, declares, I promised that members of your family would minister before me forever. But now, the Lord declares, far be it from me. Those who honor me, I will honor. But those who despise me will be disdained. The time is coming when I will cut short your strength and the strength of your priestly house, so that no one in it will reach old age, and you will see distress in my dwelling. Although good will be done to Israel, No one in your family line will ever reach old age. Every one of you that I do not cut off from serving at my altar, I will spare, only to destroy your sight and sap your strength. And all your descendants will die in the prime of their life. And what happens to your 2 sons will be a sign to you. They will both die on the same day. So yeah, you get the gist. Lots of spiteful, vengeful things for eating the wrong portions of meat, in my opinion. It's a bit harsh. Like, especially, like, I mean, if we're going by this, if this is truly the word of God, like everyone says, and we're going by this is pretty freaking harsh. Like, not only are Eli's sons suffering, I mean, maybe they should, maybe they shouldn't, but their descendants as well. Like, so it's blood guilt. It is blood guilt. The very thing that is immoral, that's supposed to be immoral. You're not supposed to want the descendants of your enemy to suffer, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, shouldn't we be evolved beyond that by now? You would think. I don't know. But this clearly is promoting blood guilt. I mean, it's right there. Anyhow, let's continue. And this isn't some weird circumstance or exception. Like, Yahweh does this constantly for seemingly small things. I mean, like I said, there were Israelites who were stoned to death for taking on like Moabite wives, but yet Ruth somehow gets her own book in the Bible. Like, it's contradictory. It really is. Anyways, I'm not going to backtrack here. We already talked about Ruth and all that in previous videos. We're talking about Samuel right now. So that was before Samuel even did his own prophecy, because he has his own prophecy. Because, you know, Yahweh's pissed. Yahweh is royally pissed off with Eli and Eli's sons. So then Samuel, who is a young boy at this time, he visits Samuel, or talks to Samuel at night. I don't know if he's actually like, if Samuel's like sleeping in the same room as the Ark of the Covenant or what's going on. But like, he calls his name several times. And Samuel, thinking that it's Eli calling for him because Eli's an old man, he goes and checks. And Eli's like, no, I didn't call for you. Go back to bed. And this happens like 3 times until Eli realizes that it's probably the Ark of the Covenant via Yahweh, Yahweh via the Ark of the Covenant speaking to Samuel. So Eli tells Samuel to go back to bed, and when he's called again, to listen to what Yahweh has to say. And here's what Yahweh says to Samuel. We're in 1 Samuel 3, verse 11. And the Lord said to Samuel, see, I am about to do something in Israel that will make the ears of everyone who hears about it tingle. At that time, I will carry out against Eli everything I spoke against his family, from beginning to end. For I told him that I would judge his family forever because of the sin he knew about. His sons blasphemed God, or made themselves contemptible, the subnote says, and he failed to restrain them. Therefore, I swore to the house of Eli, the guilt of Eli's house will never be atoned for by sacrifice or offering. So not only is like the blood guilt a real thing, no matter how many sacrifices or atonements they do, it's never going to change it. Their descendants are just cursed, basically. And they're all going to die young, is what Yahweh's saying. All because they took the wrong parts of the meat. Like, it's crazy. It's wild. It is wild. So yeah, it's pretty bad. And obviously Samuel is a little hesitant to tell Eli this because he knows it's, you know, probably upsetting to Eli. So at first he doesn't, like when Eli asks him, so what do you say? What do you say? Samuel didn't really want to tell him at first, but Eli, you know, really pressed him about it. And Samuel told him. And, you know, Eli basically, you know, he's, you know, a good little gimp for Yahweh. He says, well, whatever he says is just the way it is, and I'm just going to deal with that. So, you know, it is what it is, according to Eli. Now, like I said, I thought it was a bit harsh, but, you know, I don't know. A lot of people find ways to excuse it. I mean, but Eli certainly found a way to excuse it, so everyone else can too. Okay. Anywho, so we get into 1 Samuel chapter 4, verse 1. Now the Israelites went out to fight against the Philistines. The Israelites camped at Ebenezer and the Philistines at Aphek. The Philistines deployed their forces to meet Israel, and as the battle spread, Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 of them in battle. And when the soldiers returned to the camp, they had this bright idea. They thought that if they brought the Ark of the Covenant with them into battle, that they would defeat the Philistines. Great idea, right? Well, so they bring their ark, they take it out from Shiloh and bring it with them to the battlefield via Eli's sons. They were the priests, so they were the ones who were, they always had to have a priest escort the Ark of the Covenant. That was the way it worked. It was very specific instructions. So Eli's sons were the ones who went. Unfortunately, this did not help them win in battle. As soon as they brought the Ark of the Covenant into the camp, the ground started shaking. As soon as they brought it into the Israeli camp, the ground started shaking. And the Philistines, who were in Aphek, heard it. And they were like, what is going on? So then the rumor mill started churning. And then someone in the Philistine camp said that there were that either God or there were many gods in the camp. The subnote says it's multiple, but, who knows? So they all started panicking. We're doomed. What are we going to do? This is what happened to the Egyptians. Oh, my God. But, they had a good commander, someone who gave them a really good pep talk. It's like, be good. You know what? We'll be fine. We'll be fine. Forget them and their Ark of the Covenant. We will be fine. And they were, apparently. They did win this battle, too. Not only did they win this battle, they stole the Ark of the Covenant and killed Eli's sons. So yeah, they killed Eli's sons and about 30,000 other Israelites. A lot of them died. It was a huge slaughter. It was a big thing. And a Benjamite who was in the battle left the battle and went back to Shiloh, where Eli was there on the side of the road waiting because he was worried about, probably worried about his sons, but mainly worried about the Ark of the Covenant. And the Benjamite came back and let him know that the Ark of the Covenant was stolen and his 2 sons were dead. And this affected Eli so bad that he fell over there on the side of the road and broke his neck. I don't know, that sounds kind of funny to me. Maybe that's what happened, but I mean, who knows? Maybe he just died of grief. I don't know, but I don't know. Sounded kind of funny. He was already sitting down, so how did he fall down and break his neck? I don't know, but that's what it says. It's Bible, so you got to believe it, right? And then Eli had a daughter-in-law who was pregnant. One of his son's wife was pregnant and went into premature labor. I don't know if this is important or not, but it's in here. I wanted to mention it. And she was so upset and devastated by all these losses that she didn't even care that she gave birth to a son. And she named him Ichabod. And apparently Ichabod means no glory. And according to her, it's because the glory has departed from Israel because of the capture of the Ark of God and the deaths of her father-in-law and her husband. And she said the glory has departed from Israel, for the Ark of God has been captured. That verse was in 1 Samuel 4, verse 22. So, funny enough, though, Philistines, it wasn't the victory they thought it would be. Because, like we've said before, and we've discussed this at great length, there are some very strict, specific rules about this Ark of the Covenant. You can't just pick it up and, carry it to your camp in your country and think it's going to be a good thing. There are very specific rules the Israelites had to go by to have this thing. They had to wear specific clothes. They had to have a specific building, specific genetics, all this stuff. It was all very specific. I mean, like I said, Aaron's own sons were struck down dead simply because they lit the wrong candles. So, it was very dangerous equipment that they had. They just had no idea. And bad things started happening. So they took it to Ashdod and the city of Ashdod in a temple of Dagon. Now, Dagon is a Philistine deity who's worth his own whole video that I don't have time to get into today. But there is a depiction of Dagon here. according to the research I've done, he kind of looks like one of those Apkulu in the Sumerian mythology with a fish-looking suit. I mean, I don't know if that's actually Dagon. I had trouble finding an actual specific depiction of Dagon, but, that's what kept coming up, so I thought I'd share it. Anywho, so they take the Ark of the Covenant in their temple of Dagon, and the statue of Dagon kept falling over. Now, they attributed it to the Ark of the Covenant, and maybe it was, I don't know, but the Dagon idol kept getting broken, and not only that, that was a very minor consequence, that their idol kept getting broken. What happened was the people in Ashdod started getting tumors, like cancerous tumors. The people of the city did. Not only that, rats. Apparently this ark attracted rats too. There was rats everywhere. And people, like I said, had cancerous tumors. Young and old had cancerous tumors. So they thought by moving this ark to another city that they would be okay. Same thing happened in that city. The rats followed after, and so did all the cancerous tumors, all on the young and old. So clearly they realized their mistake, and they started to panic. They're like, well, we got to get rid of this thing. This thing is killing people. Like, we got to do something about this. So they make kind of a temporary truce with some people in Israel. And they pretty much ask, what do? We want you to have your device back. We don't want it anymore. It's hurting us. What specifically do we have to do to get rid of all these ailments that's happening? So they were sent with specific instructions, what they're going to have to send back with the Ark of the Covenant. They're supposed to send back some sacrifices, some gold in the shape of the cancerous tumors and gold rats and stuff. It's kind of wild and kooky, but I don't know. That's what they did. And they followed the instructions. You know what I mean? They were ready to get rid of this thing. They were ready to get rid of this Ark of the Covenant. And at this point, the Ark of the Covenant had been in several different Philistine towns. And Ashdod, Ekron, Gaza, I believe. It had been in all these different towns. So at this time, they were ready to get rid of this thing. Unfortunately, what they followed these rules, right? But they brought the Ark of the Covenant to where to the field of Joshua in Beth Shemesh. And there the Israelites were. It was like the grain harvest, so everyone was outside and they saw it coming. And at first everyone was happy, everyone was celebrated. And if you blink, you'll miss it. But a big slaughter happened that day. Not from the Philistines, but from the Ark of the Covenant itself. People simply looked at it and people dropped dead. Now, the scripture says, let me see if I can find it. Hold on a minute. Let me find the scripture. Okay, 1 Samuel 6, verse 19. But God struck down some of the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh, putting 70 of them to death because they looked at the ark of the Lord. Now, there's a subnote here. In the early Hebrew manuscripts and the Septuagint, it says over 50,000 of them. Not 70, over 50,000 of them to death. And the people mourned because of the heavy blow the Lord had dealt them. Yeah, over 50,000 people is a very heavy blow, I would say. That is a lot of people. That was a lot of people. So eventually, the Ark of the Covenant did end up resting in Kiriath Jearim. But yeah, I just wanted to say, yeah, so in your NIV Bibles, it will say that 70 of them died, but actually in the actual ancient ones, it says over 50,000 of them died. So it's pretty significant. What was supposed to be a joyous moment of bringing back their Ark of the Covenant, it turned into, just nothing but death and pandemonium. Like what is up with this Ark of the Covenant? This was a dangerous equipment. This was very, very dangerous. You know what I mean? I don't know about you all, but I am definitely leaning towards the theory that it could have been some sort of nuclear reactor. Because, what does this? You know what I mean? These, tumors, things like that. Now, the rats, I'm not really sure what that's about. I'll have to do more research on that. But, yeah, the tumors and the radiation, I don't know. It sounds very, really similar to radiation. It does, but I could be wrong. Okay, let's see, where are we at now? But anyway, so, we get to a point here, I'm in 1 Samuel 7, 1 Samuel 7, verse 2. Okay, the ark remained at Kiriath Jearim a long time, 20 years in all. Then all the people of Israel turned back to the Lord. So Samuel said to all the Israelites, if you are returning to the Lord with all your hearts, then rid yourselves of the foreign gods and the Ashtoreths, and commit yourselves to the Lord, and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines. So the Israelites once again put away their Baals and the Ashtoreths, assuming they're idols, and served the Lord only. And then Samuel said, assemble all Israel at Mizpah, and I will intercede with the Lord for you. When they assembled at Mizpah, they drew water and poured it out before the Lord. And on that day they fasted, and there they confessed, we have sinned against the Lord. And at this point, and Samuel at this time was serving as like the judge of Israel. This is still technically the time of the judges. And then the Philistines, while this was all happening, while they're at Mizpah, the Philistines attempted to attack them. And when the Israelites saw that the Philistines were coming to attack them, they asked Samuel to cry out to God on their behalf, which Samuel did. Now we're at verse 10. While Samuel was sacrificing the burnt offering, the Philistines drew near to engage Israel in battle. But that day the Lord thundered with loud thunder against the Philistines and threw them into such a panic that they were routed before the Israelites. And the men of Israel rushed out of Mizpah and pursued the Philistines, slaughtering them the way to a point below Bethkar. So, I'm not sure if this noise was like thunder or if it was, I don't know, a spaceship. I don't know. There's a lot of theories about that. But it does seem that it's something physical happened in that sense. Some sort of noise occurred. And Samuel is giving credit to Yahweh for this noise. I just wanted to point that out. Anyways. And I also wanted to point out here that, let me just read the verse. Okay, I'm still in 1 Samuel 7. This is verse 13. So the Philistines were subdued and they stopped invading Israel's territory, even though it was their territory first. And they stopped invading Israel's territory. Throughout Samuel's lifetime, the hand of the Lord was against the Philistines. And this is important, like keeping in mind that maybe the reasons the Philistines did keep attacking them was because they wanted their land back. Much like anyways, it's just history repeating itself all the time. It's ridiculous. Okay. So now the towns from Ekron to Gath that the Philistines had captured from Israel were restored to Israel. And Israel delivered the neighboring territory from the hands of the Philistines. And then there was a quote unquote peace between Israel and the Amorites. I mean, I guess it's a form of peace. I mean, they stole their land and I guess they gave up trying to take it back. I guess you could call that peace. At least for the time being, they attempted to, give up. At least for the time being. Okay. So, Samuel would travel to Mizpah from his home Ramah. He still lived in Ramah, but he would travel to Mizpah back and forth throughout his lifetime, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So, I think I'm going to leave off there. I think that's good for today because then on Sunday we get into Saul will be introduced into the story because as you'll see the Israelites Samuel's sons start to repeat similar patterns of behavior to Eli's sons and the Israelites want a ruler over them. It's a whole thing. And we'll get into that next time. But yeah, anyway, so I hope you all have a good day.